Hi there, Frank Winston here for the Pacifica Historical Society, host of the weekly show Footprints of Pacifica, where we discover and explore the lure and the lore of lovely Pacifica, its character and its characters. Tonight's show we take you to a special event which was held in Pacifica at the City Council Chambers on March 17, 2007, where we had a reunion of all the members of the City Council, the mayors, the Planning Commission, and others who have lived here for over 50 years, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the incorporation of Pacifica. You'll note from the reunion, many people hadn't seen each other for a long time and were surprised to meet them. Here we have a video of some of the reminiscences of the people who are sharing the ideas of the joy of politics, the frustrations, how the city began, what happens when a city begins, and why the opposition to the formation of a city. I'm pleased to have the tape roll now where we see the reminiscences and some footprints in the sands of time.
I was here when I was 5.
I was 7.
I was waiting for you to get through talking. Yes, she's right.
Oh my God! I'm fine. I am fine. Good to see you.
I know it.
Long time.
I know.
All of the council members, all the surviving council members, and city leaders. We have gotten quite a few city leaders, city managers, and so on, from dating back all the way back to 1957 when the city was first incorporated. And we're very happy to have all you here. I'm happy to see such a great turnout. It's just wonderful.
I was first PTA president for the three schools, Lindemar, Odsted, and I think it was Sanchez. 50 years ago was quite a while, but so I had a lot of experience trying to help solve the problems of the area. But when they decided to incorporate the area and had the studies going on, at that particular time, it was so different. And I was one of 26 candidates, and I thought, well, I'd never be elected anyhow. And I was a top vote getter and was automatically appointed the mayor of the city. I was the first mayor of a brand new city, any place, and it was an exciting time. Actually, our first meeting was over just behind this building in the treatment plant's little office, where we huddled at 5 o'clock to get the word from John Brooding in the county to tell us that yes, we were officially in a city. And at that time, all of the controls for the city was in limbo. So prior to this meeting, Jane Hicks, who was a lady representing the city as the acting city manager, and she had all of the ordinances ready for us. So at 5 o'clock when the word came, we were sworn in, bonded, and then we passed the emergency ordinances to get the city established for our police protection and health and all of the different kinds of necessary actions that was at that time. We later just had meetings around the clock. We were busy with the concern about the Planning Commission, the Recreation Commission, the Sewer District, fire, and all of these kind of things, and what were we going to do about them, and who was going to be appointed.
Sorting those out and getting all those people.
Oh yes, it was quite a round-the-clock experience. But when we finally got them in place, and we interviewed the city managers to be at my home and the beach, Lindemar Beach down there, and we selected Carl Baldwin, who was our first acting manager, a very fine man, did a wonderful job for the city. And he still lives here. Oh, I think the fond memories of Pacifica is being, coming home from meetings, trying to sort out the problems that we were facing. And when I'd walk the beach in that nice fresh air and listen to the ocean, all of the problems seemed to disappear. And I loved it. And I miss it very much.
Are we done? Not yet. Okay.
The only reason that they named Sasser Avenue was because I was in the hospital. It was a back situation. They thought I was going to die. So they named the avenue after me. But the avenue has proved to be very beneficial to our family because coming down the Coast Highway was a member of our family that we did not know, and he was from Switzerland, and he was a cousin of my husband's, and we have had just wonderful times visiting Switzerland to see all of Joe's family. So Pastor Avenue is very significant.
I didn't know. Read it. I went there one time.
I think something like this really creates a sense of belonging and a sense of accomplishment. And on a personal level, to see people that I've known for years and years but haven't seen in years is just wonderful. And I'm always in favor of things like this. I originally worked with the committee to form incorporation for the city. And of course, after a few years, when it was incorporated, I was on the City Planning Commission for a total of 15 years. And the thing that gives me the greatest pleasure is the work we did and the opening we created for the senior citizen housing, the 3 complexes in Pacifica that now exist. And it was the first that was ever attempted in Pacifica. And that I had something to do with that personally gives me a great deal of pleasure. The residents of the city have never been lackadaisical, have never been completely laid back, have always been aware and concerned on matters either planning or political. It's a very proactive community, more so than I think the average of the city.
I don't know. I don't know what drew me into running for the city council. I think it was my good friend May G, and she always pushed me into these odd situations. She came to me and said, "You have to run for the city council. I've got the petitions already signed. You have to run. This is it. You've got to get in there." And fortunately enough, I was elected. It was a wonderful experience for the 6 years that I served on that city council with the council that I had. Bill Gregg, I think I made Bill Gregg's paper because he couldn't wait to get a paper out on Wednesday to find out what did Nick Gus do this time. For all you old timers, I think you'll understand what I'm saying.
My name is John Pratt. I was Director of Finance from about 1971 to about 1976. My first day on the job, I had to sign the second issue of bonds that were being sold for the to raise money to complete the pier. Okay, that was kind of an exciting first day for me. The difficulties primarily with the city was the lack of funding. There just wasn't enough money, and the inside joke was Pacifica had champagne taste but a beer budget, and staff was very much aware of that. Police would get, of course, the lion's share of what funding was available, then fire department, because those are so very essential. And then PB, Parks, Beaches, and Recreation, and Finance and Engineering all came up after that in terms of competing for funds.
So there was no order of importance when it came to funding?
Well, I'll put it this way. The other department heads, particularly police and fire, they had more ammunition to use to get money than the rest of us. And there wasn't really enough money to go around. So it was a matter of priorities. And you had to wear a number of hats. Everybody did. because we didn't have enough staffing to do a lot of separate departments in those days. This is back in the 70s.
What I remember most about my involvement in the city, I look back, we got Frontierland Park, which I was on the PVR commission when we did that. We got the swimming pool at Oceana, I was on the commission when we did that. We have the lights and the tennis courts down south at Terranova. And then when I got on the city council, of course, one of the things that I was a recipient of because of the previous council was a community center opening up. So I just know that I'm just so, this city is such a great city that being involved in it and know that you just did a little bit, a tiny bit to help it make a better city is the big things I remember. My kids growing up here, buying our first home here.
So I got involved in local politics in around 1980 when there were a group of people in town that thought that the development might get out of hand, and I went into it as a geologist. I spent 30 years as professor of geology at San Francisco State University, and I was very concerned with some of the potential development that might occur in proximity or on the San Andreas Fault and also on the sea cliffs, which I thought were unsafe projects, and that's what got me motivated. Became one of the original members of Friends of Pacifica. That was a local citizens group that ran 3 people for city council in 1982, Chuck Curry, Jeanette Warden, and Peter Loeb, and won 3 seats, and so took over the majority opinion on the city council. The Friends of Pacifica group then, in the early to middle 80s, put in the growth control ordinance that then limited the amount of development that could occur. And we were very proactive in trying to keep development at a reasonable level and to preserve as much open space and to avoid development in what I consider geologically hazardous areas. So I then ran for city council in the next election in '84 and served from '84 to '88. I didn't run for re-election because I was on sabbatical leave and was going to be in Europe for a year. But when I was over there preparing a lecture on the San Andreas Fault to give at the University of Edinburgh, the Loma Prieta earthquake occurred. So I had to scrap those plans and come back because I was actively involved in research on the earthquake faults in the Bay Area. And so I then decided to run again in 1990, which I did, and won, and then got caught up in the recall that occurred in, it was either 91 or 92, and I was recalled along with 4 of the 5 council members. This was a time at which the state legislature had decreased the amount of funds that were kicked back to local city councils, and so we were in a very bad situation financially. And so we decided to put basically a parcel tax, which would have cost people about, $70 a year, something like that. And we voted to do that, and there was an uprising led by the real estate people primarily, in my opinion, in town that resulted in us being recalled.
I remember when the city was incorporated, and one of the first things they did was disincorporate the fire district, and we became the city fire department. I was working the night that the incorporation ceremonies took place at the Valimar School multi-purpose room, and I had Joe Bonello come in and stand by for me when I went down to the ceremonies. And Mayor Christopher from San Francisco came in, and Ms. Limousine and police guard and did the installation ceremonies. It was quite an interesting time.
Well, it was my first city manager job. I'd been in the business for 10 years beforehand, and so I really enjoyed working with the council in that role. Had a great council for all of the time here, many changes, recalls, all that stuff. There's several recall attempts, and there was one recall where 4 out of the 5 council were recalled, and the first all-woman city council in many, many years in California was formed here in Pacifica. I remember because People magazine came, and well, it was chronicle everything else, all that kind of stuff. That was interesting. And then they caused a great change because it was over what caused it was a $75 tax. And afterwards, they reduced the budget by several $1 million. So it was change. And part of that was interesting. And part of it wasn't very much fun because of reductions. But it was, the community spoke out. I mean, it was interesting because I was staff, and so I watched, you know, that kind of change and then tried to deal with it. I was there for over a couple of years afterwards, and then got another job.
What makes Pacifica special to you?
Well, it's the place that time forgot. It's special to me because it doesn't change in certain ways. It doesn't change from a standpoint of its very, very conservative land use feelings, or putting it another way, it doesn't want a lot of development, never has and doesn't. And so I come back here every year for a couple of months now to live and surf with my friends. And it's while it changes a bit, its core is still there, and that is that it's sort of five coastal valleys that really don't have too much in common, other than they don't want everybody else here, and that unites them, and it keeps them from the extension of 380 25 years ago to you know, Highway 1 to some extent, to the quarry. To all kinds of things, and that's actually coming back here. I enjoy seeing that and seeing the surrounding hills that haven't developed, and I had a hand in that because that's what the council wanted to do when I was here. So that's what I still like about this place.
And let's start with Connie, your role in the formation of the city of Pacifica, and you may also address the vote that lost as well as the vote that won.
Well, we had an original committee of 21 people who met at my home every Sunday night for 9 months. That's why at one time they kiddingly called me the mother of Pacifica, because it took 9 months to make it. we were going to, we had talked about incorporation, and they had an election before our group formed, and I believe Nick Gus was elected on that city council, if I'm right, but they elected 5 council people, but the incorporation failed. So that's when he got busy, because San Bruno had announced that they were going to go from San Bruno straight to the ocean. They were going to annex all of that property, which meant we would be their so-called garbage dump. I think that's what they planned to use it for. So we worked very hard and had carnivals and all sorts of things to raise money to pay for the election. And it did win by about 600, I think it was 600 votes. And here we are today. I'm very proud of the work I did there.
Thank you.
My name is May G, and I've been here before the incorporation, and my fondest memory is all the hard work we did on the incorporation committee, trying to get the signatures for the petition. And I don't know, it's just a wonderful place, and I'm so glad that we can raise our 4 children here.
My name is Sheila Hyman. I moved to Pacifica before it was Pacifica in 1954, and I was on the Park and Recreation Commission for 13 years, and I remember working with Nick Gus against incorporation. I was 26 years old, mom with 3 small children, my husband, and it was wonderful living here at the time. Really enjoy it.
Let me tell you just a couple things about that I think were terrific about the time I spent on the council. One of them, I have to say, is the Fog Fest. I served on the with one of my colleagues on the original committee that created redevelopment, and I'm very proud of our redevelopment district in the Rockaway Beach area. I think that continues to hold an important economic value for the city. But out of that also came the Fog Fest, and this will be our 21st year of that event. it's grown. It's been really incredibly successful, and I'm really excited to be a part of that and a part of the group that produces the Fog Fest now. It came out of the Commercial Development Task Force, and that task force was looking at ways to improve the commercial activity and economic viability of the city. And one of the things that people always said is, "Oh my God, it's always foggy in Pacifica." Well, those of us who live here know better than that, and so we said, "Look, let's try to change that image." And that was controversial all by itself. But let's try to change that image, and let's poke fun at the Fog Fest. I mean, let's poke fun at this idea of fog, and have it on the sunniest day of the year, and say, "Oh my gosh, you know, this whole event was a failure because, my gosh, there's no fog in Pacifica." So that was the idea. That was controversial. My God, everybody screamed. All the realtors were mad that we would even mention the word fog, and you know. So we had the first one. It turned out to be a great success, and it's been a great success ever since. And I think people have a different image of Pacifica as a result of that. Yeah.
I'm Hazel Gabriel, and I was PTA president, and I have pictures. This is Oceana PTA president back in May 10th, 1978, and Mr. Moore was the principal during that time. And I also was a Girl Scout leader, a Brownie Girl Scout leader, and I have articles that I used to write about the Girl Scout leaders in the Fair Monitor. It would come out quarterly.
But I was on the Parks, Beach, and Recreation Commission for over 11 and a half years. And at that time, we were trying to involve more of the high school students, and the town was divided into the north and south with problems with transportation to get them for activities in the community and so on. And then many of the dedications with the different parks and so on, and the funny committees you could get on. I was working with the scavengers because I had to go to every park and figure out how many garbage cans they should have for the parks. So you have a variety of responsibilities, and you have to have a sense of humor. Overall, I think that the part that we put in for the community to be involved with the planning, with the new recreation building and citizens, and bringing the senior citizens in, and bringing the senior citizens in, not just specially for them, but for the other people of all ages. And I think people get in a rut, and they just think about teenagers or senior citizens, and they forget about all of the softball leagues and all the other parts of the city, and how you can work with the politicians in the county and in the state, and exchanging ideas and pushing them into action.
I was part of an organization called Friends of Pacifica, and which had informed really in response to a proposal for 285 condominiums, I guess, on Maury Point. There was the city adopted a new zoning ordinance that we objected to. We took that zoning ordinance to referendum and defeated it. That led to the formation of the Zoning Ordinance Review Committee. ZORC is just how we remember the name. But in that whole process, there were a whole group of us who were going to planning commission meetings and had a lot of concerns about various development proposals in town. After we had defeated the zoning ordinance, it became clear to us that we couldn't really be the decision makers unless we were unless we had a majority on the city council. So we ran a slate of 3 of us, the Friends of Pacifica organization, Jeanette Warden, Chuck Curry, and me, ran for city council, and we won. Because our sort of offer to the people of the city was that if you really want a different political bent on the council, the way to do it is to elect a new majority. So we won. Anyhow, the concern was that there was a lot of open land in Pacifica, and that the concern was that it was all going to be proposed for high-density development, like the condo project on Maury Point, which, by the way, is now included in the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. It's part of a national park, as is Sweeney Ridge, as is Cattle Hill, all of which I also consider a significant accomplishment of a lot of people from that time. I'm just one of the players in that game, but over a long period of time, the land that was preserved in permanent open space is what we were about. But at the time of the formation of the Friends of Pacifica organization, it was a specific project on Maury Point that was an issue, but at the same time, people all over town were seeing significant areas of open space that were being targeted, discussed as development sites. So there was a concern about getting control of that, and because at the time it was almost, you could come in with any sort of project on any piece of open land, and there was nothing to really control that. So we were the controlled growth people, what some people refer to as the no-growthers, the negative no-growthers. We've always thought of ourselves as the appropriate growth kind of people.
You just met Jean?
Yes.
First female mayor.
Right.
You were the 49th?
49th,
Female mayor.
Right, I've been looking forward to meeting her. She was going to come when I was mayor, but I guess she got sick. And so I've been really looking forward to it, so I'm very happy that she was here, and I'm kind of glued to being by her side to hear everything that she says. I learned some things that I didn't learn, but yeah, that's a real privilege to meet her. We owe a lot to that incorporation group, and I didn't know about Mrs. Hicks. I'd like to know more about her, who was the interim city manager. And I know Carl Baldwin, and he's wonderful, and it's a real honor to be that close to the beginnings of your local history. So.